So this week, Steve Keen's favourite topic, actually it should be all our favourite topics really, climate change. Are we actually going to reach the target set out in the Paris Agreement? There's, Steve, nowhere in the world, is there?
Absolutely not. We've already breached it. I mean, we've already reached periods in 2024 when the level of global average temperature was above 1.5 degrees, which was the supposed target of the Paris Agreement. There's no effing way. We've already broken right through it. In fact, it's a bit like to use another Paris argument, it's a bit like the Maginot Line. The Germans are on the other side of it. Yeah, you can't defend yourself with the Maginot Line because it's already been breached. So yeah, that's gone. That's history.
So, and why are we missing these targets? Is it? It feels to me, it feels like bureaucracy is a large part of this. So we have lots of meetings where targets are decided. Then you get a lot of argy-bargy as to the wording, exactly what is set out to be achieved. And then you have a whole load of countries that are trying to find ways of avoiding it anyway. And then you've got the United States, obviously, that just sort of doesn't want to play ball at all because the president doesn't agree it's happening.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's a typical thing. If in doubt, blame economists. So
Mm.
neoclassical economists have trivialized the dangers we face. I've just read the Tony Blair document this morning, and
Yeah.
trying to
This
find.
is from the Tony Blair Institute for Global Change, which is a paper they've written by, actually not by Tony Blair, it's by Lindy Fersman, The Climate Paradox, Why We Need to Reset Action on Climate
Yeah.
Change. I
Now,
mean, she's right that we do need to.
yeah, but yeah, like there's some elements of that
How?
report that I don't totally object to, but I
Mm.
was looking through to say at what point are they relying upon the work of economists? Because let's not forget that Tony Blair commissioned the Stern report, for example. And sure enough, there's a mention of the Stern report inside that document. The only reference it makes to the expected impact of global warming is it doesn't actually refer to the paper, but there's a recent paper that said that there'll be a 19% fall in GDP by 2050 if we don't reach those targets. Okay, now that's a more neoclassical bullshit because when you look at what the way that the economists have done this ever since Nordhaus came along and produced a nonsense bloody model called DICE. The way that the economists give their results is a percentage fall in future GDP compared to what GDP would have been if global warming hadn't occurred at all. And
Right.
it looks like sounds like a large number. 19% fall in future GDP.
Well, it's just funny about that. So if we've got a growth of 5%, they're saying, let's call it 20% rather than 19%. So if we've got GDP growing at 5%, they're saying, well, actually, it would grow at 4%. Is that what they're
Not
saying?
even
Or
that.
at
Not
19?
even that extreme. The
Right.
prediction of a 19% fall in GDP in 25 years' time is a prediction
Oh,
of a
yeah,
fall in the annual rate of economic growth of 0.8%. Now that's a large, but it's not a slump.
So
It's
who
not
cares?
negative. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So who cares is the result of that, isn't it?
Exactly. And that's what
Yeah.
everybody has swallowed. I mean, if the climate scientists are pulling their hair out because they just are saying, look, this is extinction level stuff we're playing with here. You're basically inviting a meteor to hit the planet. And these idiots are saying it's only going to be a trivial impact. And that's the problem behind all of this. We've been lulled into a false sense of security by smooth projections of climate change. Now, I wish I could say
Yeah.
I made that line up, but that's a direct quote from Tim Lenton in a 2008 paper on tipping points. And they're saying what economists have done is fool us to believe the impacts are minor. So what Blair is saying is, look, we'd have a severe fall in GDP if we actually tried to meet these targets. We can't meet net zero. And all that stuff's correct. But the reason we're debating it and seeing that it's something that's bearable and we can go back to the coal in the meantime is because the predictions that economists make about, for example, a 3 degrees level of warming, twice the Paris targets, uh, according to one, I think his name is William Nordhaus. I think he may
You
have been
mentioned
given
it
a little
before, I think.
prize for his
Mm.
work. Okay,
Yeah.
his most recent version of DICE is coming from a paper in 2023, I think, said that a 3 degrees of warming by 2100 would reduce GDP in 2100 by 3.12%. Okay, he's pretty precise. He knows what he's talking about. Yeah, 3 point
I'm
fucking
very
one two
impressed. I'm
percent.
very
Give
impressed
me
by
a
the second.
blood.
I'm always impressed by a second decimal
It's
place, I have to
incredible
say.
stuff. Yeah, we get
So
we
what
get
I mean, what
GDP change from last quarter in 0.1%, and they're predicting what's going to happen to GDP in 2000 to 2 decimal places, and they can't see the stupidity of doing that in the first bloody place.
right. So, but I mean, it is reassuring to know that we've got an extinction level event, which,
It's
you know,
only going
is
to
a little
trivially
bit
impact
disturbing.
GDP. Yeah,
Yeah. So the economy's, well, I mean, we'll be dead, but the
it'll
economy's
be
going to be
doing
fine.
gangbusters, mate. Yeah,
So your investments will be safe.
that's right. You'll be
That's the,
dead, but your investments will be safe. Yeah, there'll be great
yeah.
relatives and going to your heirs who will, by that stage, be probably cockroaches.
Yeah, well, there we are. They will rise up
Mm,
and move into our houses, which they'll be able to afford. So
mm.
that's all good. But I mean, the one point made in this paper is that people, and it's because of all of these things, people aren't prepared to make compromises for two reasons. One, perhaps, as you're saying, that they don't see the situation as being as serious
Yeah.
as it is, but also that they're seeing that the actions that are being taken, which might be compromising our lifestyle, are not proving to be all that effective. So it's sort of like, well, it's not going to have much impact and it's not working anyway. So why get so het up about it?
And that's the attitude that's come through. So, and like there's one point in which I'm criticizing economists for this, obviously, for totally misleading bullshit research, which I think de facto just justifies a Nuremberg trial for the people who produced this nonsense. Literally, I really think that if we wanted to put the Nazis to the rope for killing 6 million Jews and a large number of homosexuals and political rivals and so on. What are we going to do to the economists when the body count's going to be 10 or 100 times that, or 1,000 times, frankly? You're getting him my famous.
Well, we stick him in a room with no air and 3 degrees warmer than the hottest temperature. I don't know. We just let them overheat somewhere, do
Yeah,
we?
I don't think Death Valley would be a good place for the jail. But
Yeah,
but unless the climate changes at Death Valley and they drown instead. If I know I'm getting a bit distracted here, but
but you're having fun.
yeah,
That's the
but
important
yeah,
thing.
but the reason we're complacent about the reason we want to fall for the bullshit of economists is that we are addicted to our lifestyle, and it's
Yeah.
no bloody wonder. One of my favourite this is my showing my misspent youth. Spent a lot of time listening to Leonard Cohen songs, and there was one I've forgotten which one it was.
It explains a
It
lot,
does, doesn't
actually.
it? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Bob
Yeah.
Dylan as well, a bit of Beatles.
Mm, mm.
But one of the Leonard Cohen lines I've never forgotten. It's absolutely cauterized into my brain. We are locked into our sufferings and our pleasures are the seal.
Mm.
Now in other words, it's not just the economists, it's not just the melty capitalists who make a fortune out of this stuff, who are fighting the Greens and so on. It's extremely comfortable to live in the sort of world in which we live, and we don't want to see it end. So the fact that I've got this is a hotel room, and it's the TV behind it, the lights are going, I've got the air conditioning on because if I didn't have it on, it'd be 40 degrees inside here because it's a 28-degree day in London, and the buildings are not designed to keep the heat out, etc., etc.
And you
We
flew there.
we use energy on an enormous scale, but the
Yeah.
thing is, because we've been doing it, it's like the reverse of the frog, the frogs in boiling water. You take it for granted. You don't realize how historically uh, exceptional it is to be able to consume as much energy for people who are not kings and queens. So the fact that we have hot baths and hot showers go back 1.5 centuries, and that was not the luxury that only the feudal lords and the ultra capitalists could enjoy. So we're all locked into a high energy consumption lifestyle that we don't want to
And
change.
that's why approaches which are being taken now are not to consume less energy. It's to perform this magic trick where we actually consume more,
Mm.
but we
Yeah,
decarbonize.
we use more
So
energy to
that's where,
reduce carbon levels. Yeah, and
yes, and here's a great example. So the Boundary Dam carbon capture project in Saskatchewan in Canada is being given as a good example of a carbon capture scheme.
yeah.
So you've got a coal-fired power station. They absorb the carbon dioxide that's emitted from that coal-fired power station. It's compressed into a liquid form and then it's stored underground, not necessarily where they are, it's taken elsewhere. So a very energy intensive
To
process
get carbon dioxide out of
to
the atmosphere. Yeah.
yeah, that's right. Rather than just saying, well, maybe we shouldn't burn the coal in the first place. And even worse, sometimes that liquid CO2 is being used to blast out oil from underground
Becomes
as
part of the
well.
whole fracking
I mean,
process.
it's like a yeah, exactly. It's like a. I mean, it's almost like a bad. It's like a dark comedy, a black comedy, isn't it?
We're
That you
living
would
one.
use.
Yeah.
You would use the you try and reduce carbon through a very energy intensive scheme with a byproduct of which will allow you to create more carbon emitting fossil fuels.
Yeah, I mean,
Incredible.
we really are locked in a dilemma, and that's like the Tony Blair thing is saying, oh, people aren't won't accept it. It's true, because people are basically thinking it's a smooth future process. Okay, there's no catastrophic elements in the future, so let's just continue pumping on the gas of energy, but try to reduce the amount of carbon dioxide we're generating. But the level of temperature we're already at, which is 1.5 degrees and rising, the worry that climate scientists have, and these are people who actually understand the systems they're talking about, terrified because they say if this keeps up, we will then trigger dramatic change in the climate across the whole planet, which will mean the entire basis of human civilization will be destroyed because we have sedentary systems. We've got our farms in particular locations, our cities in others. Uh, there are parts we don't use now because they're deserts or they're too flooded. All those patterns are going to change. And then can our existing infrastructure cope with the level of rainfall we're going to see? Now, one little factoid, which I mean, I still find it stunning that people don't realize this. Economists have not relied upon the climate models of climate scientists. They've made their own up. Okay, so they rather than having climate scientists making climate models, which then can translated by economists into economic consequences of the changes that the climate science models predict. The climate economists have made up their own. They started doing this with William Nordhaus in 1993 with his model DICE, and yet 40, going on 35 years later, um, no economic model includes the impact of rainfall. Okay. So the fact that
Hmm.
you're getting massive floods in Valencia and all the rest, no, it doesn't matter. It's not in our models. We can't see it, therefore it's not happening. Okay. So the level of ignorance about the
That's just the weather, Steve. It's just the weather.
just the weather, yeah, you put take wear one less cardigan, that sort of bullshit. Um,
But the
that's the
other
scary
interesting
thing
thing,
is we think we're being informed by the climate scientists about what's going to happen. We've actually been informed by the economists who haven't got an effing clue. They can even produce climate models that don't include rainfall, let alone wind and other elements of the actual disruptions we're facing. So the
well, the
scale of
other thing is,
you know, this
yeah,
this
and the scale of it all, exactly. But also the answer that economics is going to come to the rescue is the other
forget it.
part of
They-
it.
they- They're, they're the reason we're in this dilemma.
But I mean, for example,
Mm.
green jobs. There's going to be this massive growth in green jobs, and there's going to be all this investment in the economy in these new ways, and that's going to eclipse what's happening in the fossil fuel industry. Well, let me tell you, the number of jobs in BP. I'm trying to find it actually on my screen now.
Mm.
Just take my word for it. Well, here we are. 100,000 people who work for BP. Last year, that was a 15% increase on the year before. This is for a company that has come out and said, they're employing more people so that we can focus on fossil fuels because doing the other thing just hasn't been profitable for us. And then on the other side, we've got, these green jobs are going to be there. And yet we're told that, one way that we can, try and resolve carbon in the atmosphere is by more afforestation. One of the principal ways
That's in the
of
Blair report
nature-based
as well, of
solutions.
course. Yeah.
Yeah, and so we plant more trees. Well, how is that? Well, okay, we need more tree planters, perhaps, but I suspect that can be done by machines. But that's taking up farmland. How is that creating green jobs? It's not quite. You could argue quite the reverse. So who's paying for that? That's not being driven by economics. That's being driven by somebody making a decision that land that was used for productive use the productive use will be and good, reducing carbon, but it's not an economic solution, is it?
Well, I mean, this is what the limits to growth was actually about. And there's again economists again, yet again, William Waterhouse playing a leading role, trashed their arguments, but they had 5 system states that they modelled over time, and they had positive amplifying and dampening feedbacks between the different components of it. So if you want to produce, you have a higher population, that means you need a higher level of output from agriculture, which means you need land for farming. But if you want to have more industrial output, that industrial output comes at the expense of land for farming. So when one reduces the other, and then pollution out of the industrial sector reduces the output of farming, etc., etc. All these feedbacks are there. They've been completely ignored by conventional economists in their modelling, so they just don't see the potential
Mm.
breakdowns that are actually were in the limits to growth study itself, and they're on the real planet. So we're going to have, this is why I find it so dangerous that it's being put across as this, X percentage GDP for Y degree change in temperature. It is fiddling around about how to optimize our current path when our current path, according to climate scientists, is going to lead to our extinction.
Well, when we come back, we'll look at the answers that the Tony Blair project has.
Mm.
It sounds like a very
You said
naff
Blair Witch or Tony Blair? I
1980s
can't work out which one.
progressive bent.
That's
So,
true. Yeah.
see? Well, yeah. Did I not say Tony Blair?
You said Tony
Yeah.
Blair Witch.
Oh,
You
the Tony
didn't, but
Blair
you
Witch
didn't. But it's
project. No,
actually,
no,
I
no.
thought it'd help you
The,
out.
so they've got
The
7
Tony Blair Witch
solutions.
Report. There you go.
Yeah, the Tony Blair Institute for Global Change. What are their answers? We'll look at that. Well, I have no idea what Steve was talking about there. We'll look at that when we come back on the Debunking Economics podcast. Well, we're looking at climate change this week. The fact that we are nowhere near our targets of containing 1.5% increase in the global temperature. We're probably beyond that now, and we're crewing up. Who knows where to? What we do know is there's apathy now from a lot of people. Why should we bother? Because first of all, well, the impact's not going to be that great. And secondly, no matter what we do, it's going to happen anyway. Seems to be the general dialogue. And then you've got complete out-and-out climate change deniers, one of which is the President of the United States. Another one is my brother.
And the third is the Prime Minister of the UK. Let's not leave Starmer out of this.
Oh, you don't think? Oh, is he in that camp as well? Okay. Well, he's just playing lip service to you. Do you think?
Yeah, and that's what's going on with it. That's the only thing to take out of the Blair Witch Report. Pardon me, the Tony Blair Report is that it's all lip service, and that's why
Yeah.
people are like the political climate is such that people will vote for Trump over somebody who takes climate to some extent seriously, but they're only paying lip service to it, and people are saying, "Oh, let's ignore it." To me, I mean, I can't help but coming back to a Chamberlain versus Churchill argument and saying we've got Chamberlain's in charge saying peace in our time, and Churchill saying, this we've got to get rid of this curse, or we're all going to end up in slave camps. We've still got that Chamberlain attitude dominating, and Tony Blair is playing the role in this particular case of Chamberlain.
Right. So where's our Churchill coming from? Yeah.
There ain't one on the planet. I mean, in terms of
no. There we are.
I'll apply for the job, but I'm not in. There's nobody the influence of a Winston Churchill making an alternative case who can then take over the direction of government, and instead they're saying, "Oh, let's do more Chamberlain."
You'll need to fatten up a bit, Steve, and
I'm
start
getting there.
smoking cigars.
You want to see my waistline?
Work on your delivery.
Well, I can do the voice.
So the Tony Blair project, it does sound like a very naff 1970s progressive rock band, doesn't it? The Tony Blair project. But anyway, there's 7 solutions for global change in this report that we've been talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I'll do them very quickly. 1, accelerating and scaling technologies that capture carbon, which seems like a cop-out, doesn't it? Because
in fact, on that front, there are some projects that I've been exposed to, courtesy of my own work. People coming forward. One guy on Twitter, and I forgot Paul Madowski, I think, makes a lot of case about growing bamboo, and says that rapid growth of bamboo grows so quickly you can virtually watch it grow. And he said that's a great carbon sequestration service. Another person on my school group, the online courses that I'm teaching, is a physicist working in the west coast of America, and he argues he can actually use a mechanism involving what's called the thermocline layer, which is a layer with a temperature inversion in the layers of the ocean, bring phytoplankton above the thermocline, let them drop down again, and that actually sequestrates the carbon, then becomes calcium carbonate on the floor of the ocean. Amazingly enough, the level at which that can be done in terms of depth is only about 60 meters of depth off the coast. He works that could actually drastically sequester carbon. So I'm all in favour of rapid schemes for sequestering carbon, because we're going to bloody well need it. So that particular
Yeah.
side of I'm not anti, but again, they're doing stuff about attaching DAC systems to coal-fired power stations, and the energy consumption they themselves need actually causes part of the issue. Where do you get the energy from? Carbon.
Yeah.
We're not breaking the nexus with those schemes, but there are potential schemes around to do it.
Right. Okay. Well, so half a point for the first one
Yeah.
then. Harnessing the power of technology, including AI. AI
Which, of
is
course, doesn't
obviously
use
going
any
to
energy
say,
at all. Just ask Richard Werner. I had a bloody conversation with him on that bloody front, and he's had this fantasy line in the book he wrote in Hungary, saying that the virtual world, we're going to go to a services-based economy, and this will give us a kind of, I think I can get the quote out, free of the limitations of this world and not subject to the laws of thermodynamics. Oh, give me a bloody break. Yes,
through AI.
through
Right. Okay.
AI. He doesn't realize
These
the amount of energy consumed. The amount of energy consumed. Like,
because
you
he's
and I are
found a
consuming
way that
energy
we
right
can
now.
run these server farms off plankton.
Yeah,
Is he?
I
Or
know.
what's
Forget
the
it.
yeah.
So the level of fantasy involved in some of these ideas. So that is fantasy once more.
Yeah. But even the idea that AI is going to have that much of an impact. So for example, I mean, the idea I think is that we're going to use energy more efficiently, and AI is going to help us do that. Well, yeah,
Well, the only like the ways in which I'll give a certain capacity for AI, which is that they call them, people are starting to realize what AI actually means, and they're now calling large language models, and basically it's a way of
yeah,
predicting the next word. Okay, and you can have what looks like a conversation with an intelligent beast, and some of the patterns that are being seen in the way the AI answers. You asking AI, how do I get from one side of the Central Park in New York to the other side? You don't realize that AI's answer involves imagining that you can actually drive straight through the park as part of the algorithm that finally works out the shortest route. So that's, in terms of intelligence in that sense, no, but to some extent, possibly if you want to contain a fusion reaction, maybe the AI will work out a series of feedbacks such that you can contain magnetically contain the fusion process. So there's some areas where it might work, but I think again that's another wing and a prayer concept.
Well, I think all of them are a little bit, aren't they? So the third one actually is related to fusion because it's investing in breakthrough and frontier energy solutions, including
Fusion's
fusion.
in there. I saw it. Yeah. Now
So,
again,
I mean, we're part of. I mean, we have actually got to the stage now, haven't we, where we can actually create more energy from fusion than the energy involved
there've been two or three
in creating it.
experiments in some of the various reactors around the planet where they have actually managed not at once they fire the process up, then you're getting a small amount more energy out than you're taking to contain the plasma. But to actually tick it in the first place, we're still, we're not 30 years away, but we've got to be, if we're lucky, we're maybe 10 years away. Now, do we have 10 years? And do we have,
Yeah.
then how many fusion reactors do you need, et cetera, to reduce the use of carbon? Again, I think that's another wing and a prayer idea.
So number 4 is scaling nature-based solutions. So that is planting more trees, eating less cows, that sort of stuff. Which I guess everything helps. The next one is adapting to what is coming. That we know it's going to be bad. So this isn't really a solving the problem. This is just dealing with the problem, and we seem to have shifted to that, don't we?
Yeah.
But actually, rather badly. And that, and the problem is, which is look, my brother's argument. We need there's no doubt climate change is happening. It's not man-made as far as he's concerned. Perhaps because until
Not
this
man-made,
week he
okay.
worked. No, because until this week he works. He might change his idea now because he's just retired, but he's worked for BP for decades.
That wouldn't bias his thoughts at all.
No, of course not.
No, no.
But his point is, and I think this is quite common, that we need fossil fuels to help us cope with the climate emergency. Because it's never, and this is part of it, isn't it? We need to adapt. And the
This
easiest
is
way
the
to
this is
adapt
the
is to
myth
use
that
the energy we've
economists
already got.
this is the myth that economists have pumped out. I'll quote. I'm probably quoting Larry Summers. I'm not sure. Okay? But there are 19 people that were asked these questions, 10 of whom are economists. The person doing the survey was a little bloke called William Nordhaus, and he asked these experts, including Larry Summers, on climate, what's going to be the impact of climate change? And the response was the adaptability of human societies is so high that the overall effect of climate change is going to be effectively zero. So the
Yeah,
belief that that's true lies behind the arguments that we can adapt to it. We will adapt so rapidly, the effect's going to be basically zero. Well, you see, I mean, the worst floods, I think, in our recent history that have got a climate change tinge to them are the ones in Greece, about 8 months ago, I think, and they ended
yeah,
up inundating the main wheat growing region of Greece, of cereal growing crops. It's underwater. You know, you get, and it's a matter of months or even longer for the water to drain away. The scale of what we're talking about is beyond the capacity to adapt. It's like trying to adapt to a V2 headed towards your house. You know, good luck with adapting to that. This again, the trivializing the scale of what we face.
yeah. Well, if you're a wheat farmer, you just buy a boat and do scuba diving
Yeah,
lessons
yeah,
instead.
that's right.
Yeah,
Change to a new industry.
that's all.
That's also what they call the dumb farmer hypothesis. They say, oh, these farmers will adapt. You know, they can grow wheat for a while, then they can start growing rice, then they can have make into tourist camps. And I mean, literally, that turns up in the economic papers. Equally, there's going to be a growth in food output from Siberia, so we can buy it off the Russians. Yeah.
Yeah. Meanwhile, watch Waterworld for for where we end up ultimately. So then I think we're up to number 6 of the 7. I love this one. Simplifying global efforts to deliver collective action. They say, as global trade fragments, we have a generational opportunity to realign trade and climate objectives as countries focus on retaining key markets for exports. I have no idea
What that
what that
means.
means.
Yeah, it's a nice.
But I love the
That's
idea that we've
probably
got this.
written by an AI.
Yeah, possibly. Yes, an AI with not enough information, so it said I'll just wing it.
Yeah.
But it's yeah, but we've got this global opportunity, Steve, that's never existed before. I think what it's saying for countries to work
Oh,
together
of course they're
to
going to
solve
do that.
climate change is a
Yeah,
new
yeah.
opportunity
They're
that
going to
hasn't
pool their
existed before.
nuclear weapons and solve it that way. Yeah,
So
I mean,
mm,
this is partially. Um, there was a sting done by one of the satirical news groups. I've forgotten which one, where they went to see a lobby group in Washington and said they wanted their services for something like, reducing government action on climate change. I think that was the actual topic they gave, and the lobbyists explained that the companies themselves pushed for the whole thing to be done at the international level because they knew there'd never be international agreement. So things like COP28, and which I prefer to call COP out, and all
yeah,
the IPCC meetings and so on, and the fact that you've got to have 100% consensus. Okay, you can't get anything which all countries don't agree with. All that stuff was set up to make sure it would fail. And of course, they're going to change
it's
tack
been so
completely.
on that basis, it's been very successful.
Extremely, extremely successful. Total waffle. We've
Yeah.
generated the output of waffle without having any real impact.
Okay, well here's the final one, right? Rethinking the role of finance
Oh, of course,
in all of
finance.
this.
Yeah, those. I think it said
So
that
we
the bright
issue
brains in
group.
finance can solve all this. Is something where they actually talk about the amount of skill in the finance sector.
Yeah.
That's like
Well,
replying on a.
because with finance, Steve, I don't know if you realize this, that the money will flow to where it's most needed. And that
Oh,
means it will, rather than
that's what
for
I didn't
profiteering,
understand.
it will be there
Oh,
to mitigate risk. And we'll be doing this by issuing green bonds, for
mm.
example. So, yeah. So that's the answer. The finance industry is going to save it. It's a combination between economists and financiers working together to make money out of this. It's
Make a
making
profit out
money.
of global warming. Yeah, I know. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
there's the big opportunity. So I wonder why that's not happening yet.
I do wonder. Yeah, I expect the
Maybe there's not. I know, because obviously, if that was the case, then BP wouldn't have reversed their strategy so sharply, would they?
No, I mean the
So,
whole, again, the finance sector won't survive climate breakdown. I don't think I saw anything on insurance in that document. Remind me if I'm wrong.
mm,
But if
yeah,
you get to the point where insurance companies say the risk is too high to insure, houses in areas prone to floods and heat waves and fires, uh, ultimately it means you can't have housing in that area. You can't therefore have factories in that area, etc., etc. The idea that you can make a profit out of that is just ludicrous.
yeah. Unless we just go, oh well, we don't have insurance anymore, and we just adapt, to the
Adapt to a
worsening
world without
situation.
insurance, yeah.
Yeah, which it's not necessarily a bad thing, until you get hit with the need for the insurance, of course. But a world without the insurance industry, yeah, well, that might be a good thing. But so, what about the things that have been tried? And I mean, so this is all talking about almost mitigating action, isn't it? What can we do to try and make it less worse?
Well, that's
As
where I'm fascinated by some of those schemes because I think we're going to desperately need them. So one of the groups that I most promote is called MIR, which stands for Mirrors for Earth's Energy Rebalancing. So MWER.org, and they're currently trying this approach of reflecting solar energy back into outer space before it gets absorbed and turned into infrared, which is what actually heats up the planet.
yeah,
If you get absorbed by carbon dioxide, heating up the planet. So their scheme is to put mirrors, as many as they can manage. They're doing a lot of this in places like Nigeria, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and so on in slums. And the immediate benefit for the person living in a slum house in those areas is that they drop the temperature by 10 degrees inside the house. The mirror reflects 7 to 10 degrees of Celsius of heat, which makes those areas more bearable in the first place. But it also means the mirror, by reflecting the visible light and ultraviolet range of energy coming from the sun back into outer space before it can be absorbed. You've got the Earth re-radiated as infrared and therefore captured by carbon dioxide. Schemes like that we're going to desperately need. So
but who pays for it?
this at the moment it's all done by bloody crowdfunding, and crowdfunding keeps you alive, but it doesn't put you in the lap of luxury, as I know from my own personal experience. So the amount of money they're getting is trivial. We need
Mm.
to have thousands of mere factories that can pump out these mirrors at a incredible production rate to enable them to be deployed to reverse the damage we're doing right now. Because if we don't do it, we're going to go extinct. So I want to see as much as possible going towards groups like MIR. If the I mean I haven't looked at the arguments for bamboo as much as I have for MIR's project, but the bamboo concept, equally things with the phytoplankton cycle. We have to find ways to drastically reduce the carbon and do it no matter what the costs are. And again, this type of urgency you can find not at the same specifics, but you can find that back in the old limits to growth report. We have to make food production more secure. All these things are going to be vitally necessary in the future we face. This is looking at the seriousness properly. So we do need those schemes. But the stuff I saw
Yeah.
in that Blair report, it's again, I said, it's a Blair Witch
Well,
fantasy.
yeah, but the end of it, which you probably do agree with, is it talks about the need to advance exactly what you're saying: high risk, high impact solutions, because the piecemeal approach isn't working. So there
Yeah.
might be some good solid answers, which can buy us time while we adjust to a lifestyle that is better for the planet as a whole. But for a short term fix, there's always the danger, of course, isn't there? That if we have a short term fix or we're leading towards it, people will just not adapt and say, "Oh, we always find a way." But if there's something there that can help through those sorts of schemes that you've been talking about, but who pays for them is the question. And
Well,
this is not
that's where
addressing
government funding
this
comes.
paper says, well, yes, we need high risk, high impact solutions without actually talking about how that actually happens in reality.
Well, the
Has to come from government money.
government money creation to enable it to happen in the first place. That's the private sector. I expect the private financial system to collapse uh, in the next decade to 20 years if we're lucky. In that situation, you're only going to have fiat money creation being feasible. So the understanding of how the government creates money is a essential part of working out how we'll have the capacity to do what we did during World War II, because World War II was government-created money that financed the military campaigns of both sides. Okay, so when you're in a crisis like that, forget about the private sector. It's government money creation that will enable you to fund that, and that's what we're going to find ourselves doing. And we have a bunch of idiots who don't understand government finance in charge of government finance.
So why would the private financial system collapse in 20 years?
They've got to make a
Because of
profit.
climate change.
They've got to make a profit.
Mm,
And
yeah.
if that's why the insurance company's heading out the door. The insurance system is designed for episodic events, and therefore you spread the risk of episodics. Its episode might occur to you, it might occur to your next door neighbor. We all buy insurance to present the potential episodes. When it becomes systemic, you simply can't make a profit out of selling insurance against systemic events.
So you can't create money to use in a foreign currency, of course. You can create money for your own currency if you've got to buy resources which are not in your country. But if it's a collective effort, I mean, the money almost becomes irrelevant, doesn't it? It's like saying, well, okay, for this to work, we need these resources. Let's all team up together. Who's got them? What can you do? What can we do? And you arrive at a solution that way. But at the moment, we are so far from that because that means like a COP summit where everyone agrees.
Or a COP summit where people, as I said, we're never going to do anything serious on this. And the Tony Blair Witch Project is just more
Words.
Words without substance. We're not going to do anything until lots of white people start to die.
Yeah, ain't that the truth? Yeah. Well, even then, because they're dying in Ukraine.
2 or 3 major, like a couple of 10 to 20 million white people in the 3 or 4 different disasters somewhere around the planet, then we might take it seriously. But until then, we're going to continue waffling. And the Tony Blair Waffle Project is the sort of thing we're going to pump out, not serious analysis.
Well, do you know what? We're not going to waffle because we are going to end this now. But read the white paper. The answer is a high impact solution, whatever it might be, and we've got to experiment. And there's lots of inventiveness out there. Maybe one of these inventors will save mankind. That would be quite good for the CV, wouldn't it? What have you done? Yeah,
I'll save the
humanity.
Planet.
Yeah.
Or save the planet. Save the planet from humans. That's more the issue.
Right, very good. All right, we'll catch you next week. Good to talk, Steve.
Okay, mate. Ditto. Yep.